Daf Yomi, Tractate, above Metzia, page 54a, top of the page, with the word Tavalim, Nostin, Estrim, Peshesh. The owner gives a payment of 26 dinars. Were they to enable the other person to purchase it for 21 dinars, the temple treasury would incur a loss, as the principal plus 1/5 paid by the owner is greater than the payment of the other person, who must pay only the principal. Were the owner to pay only 20 for the principal and add 1/5, the principal paid by the owner is less than the sum offered by the other person. Therefore, the owner pays the principal proposed by the other person, and then adds the payment of 1/5 that he was obligated to pay based on his own offer, meaning 5 dinars, for a total of 26. Likewise, if the other person pays 22 dinars, the owner gives 27. If the other person offers 23, the owner gives 28. If the other person offers 24, the owner gives 29. If the other person offers 25 dinars, the owner gives 30, due to the fact that the owner does not add 1/5 based on the raise in the offer of this other person, but only on the principal according to his own offer. It is clear from these calculations that a principal of 20 plus an addition of 1/5 equals 25 dinars. Learn from it that 1/5 is calculated from without, meaning 1/4 of the value of the redeemed item. The Gemara affirms, learn from it, that this is the halacha. The Gemara comments, the two sides of this dilemma are parallel to a dispute between Tanaim, as it is taught in a Braita that it is written, and shall add unto it 1/5 their part thereof. Leviticus 27:27. This means that the item and its additional 1/5 payment will total 5 parts. 1/5 is calculated from without, this is the statement of Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yonatan says it's 1/5 means 1/5 of the principal, 1/5 is calculated from within. A dilemma was raised before the sages. Does failure to pay the additional 1/5 prevent consumption outside of Jerusalem of second tithe that was redeemed? Or does it not prevent consumption? The dilemma is second tithe produce worth 4 dinars, redeemed with 4 dinars, and the obligation to add the payment of 1/5 is an obligation incumbent upon the owner himself? In that case, apparently, failure to pay the additional 1/5 does not prevent consumption. Or perhaps, second tithe produce worth 4 dinars is redeemed with 5 dinars, no less, and failure to pay the additional 1/5 prevents consumption. Ravina said, common here, a resolution to this dilemma from a Mishnah in Demai, chapter 1, Mishnah 2. For second tithe of doubtfully tithed produce, Demai, whose status is that of untithed produce by rabbinic law, there is no payment of 1/5 if the owner redeems its second tithe, and there is no obligation of the eradication of tithes after 3 years, as is the case with tithes taken from untithed produce. Ravina explains, by inference, there is a payment of principal, although there is no payment to add 1/5. Second tithe separated from Demai requires redemption. What is the reason for this? Apparently, concerning the principle about which failure to pay it prevents consumption of second tithe of untithed produce by Torah law, it is also a sum that must be paid in the case of Tamai by rabbinic law. Concerning the payment of 1/5, about which failure to pay it does not prevent consumption of second tithe of untithed produce by Torah law. It is not a sum that must be paid in the case of demai by rabbinic law. The Gemara suggests, let us say, that the two sides of this dilemma are parallel to a dispute between Tanaim, as it is taught in a Braita, in a case where one gave payment to redeem the principal but did not give payment of the additional 1/5. Rabbi Eliezer says one may eat it, and Rabbi Yehoshua says one may not eat it. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said the statement of Rabbi Eliezer appears correct with regard to Shabbat, when the sages deemed it permitted for one to eat without the additional payment, in deference to Shabbat, and the statement of Rabbi Yehoshua appears correct with regard to the days of the week. The Gemara infers from the fact that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says the statement of Rabbi Eliezer appears correct with regard to Shabbat. By inference, they disagree even with regard to the days of the week. Likewise, from the fact that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says the statement of Rabbi Yehoshua appears correct with regard to the days of the week, by inference they disagree even with regard to Shabbat. Apparently theirs is a fundamental dispute. What? Is it not that they disagree with regard to this reasoning? Rabbi Eliezer holds that failure to pay the additional 1/5 does not prevent consumption, as redemption of the principal alone suffices. And Rabbi Yehoshua holds that failure to pay the additional 1/5 prevents consumption. Rav Papa said no. Perhaps the explanation is that everyone agrees that failure to pay the additional 1/5 does not prevent consumption, and here they disagree with regard to whether we are concerned for potential negligence. One sage, Rabbi Yehoshua, holds we are concerned for negligence. Lest one fails to pay the additional 1/5, and therefore the owner may not eat the second tithe produce until he adds 1/5 payment. And one sage, Rabbi Eliezer, holds we are not concerned for negligence, and one will probably add the 1/5 payment later. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, although the Tanaim disagree with regard to the second tithe, all concede with regard to consecrated property that if the one who consecrated it paid the principal and did not add 1/5, that he successfully desacrificed the produce, since the temple's treasurers demand payment from him in the marketplace, preventing any potential negligence. Therefore, he may use the property immediately. He may use the property immediately. He may use the property immediately. The Gemara asks, and do they not disagree with regard to consecrated property? But isn't it taught in a Braita in a case where one gave payment to redeem the principal, but did not give him payment of the additional 1/5? Rabbi Eliezer says he successfully desacralized the produce, and the rabbis say he did not desacralize the produce. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said the statement of Rabbi Eliezer appears correct with regard to consecrated property, and the statement of the rabbis appears correct with regard to second tithe. The Gemara infers from the fact that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says that the statement of Rabbi Eliezer appears correct with regard to consecrated property. By inference, they disagree even with regard to second tithe. Likewise, from the fact that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said that the statement of the rabbis appears correct with regard to second tithe, by inference, they disagree even with regard to consecrated property. This contradicts Rabbi Yochanan's statement that there is no dispute with regard to consecrated property. Rather, if it was stated, it was stated like this. Rabbi Yochanan says, all concede that concerning Shabbat, with regard to consecrated property, that he successfully desacralized the property. One reason for this halakha is, as it is written, and you shall call Shabbat a delight. Karatem Oneg. Isaiah 58:13. The sages sought to facilitate that delight in Shabbat by ruling leniently, and furthermore, it is desacralized without payment of the additional 1/5, since the temple treasurers demand payment from him in the marketplace. Rami Bar Chama says, the sages said, that consecrated property cannot be desacralized with land, as the merciful one states, with regard to redemption of a consecrated field, and he will give the money and it will be assured to him. Leviticus 27:19, indicating that redemption is accompanied with money. The question is with regard to payment of its additional 1/5. What is the halakha in terms of the possibility that it will be desacralized with land? If a non-priest unwittingly ate truma, his debt can be repaid to the priest only with non-sacred property, not with truma, as the merciful one states. And if a man eats that which is sacred unwittingly, and he shall give that which is sacred to a priest, Leviticus 22:14, from which it is derived that repayment must be with an item fit to become sacred. Meaning a non-sacred item, not truma, which cannot be consecrated again. The question is, with regard to payment of its additional 1/5, what is the halakha in terms of the possibility that it will be repaid not from non-sacred items but from truma? Second tithe produce cannot be desacralized with an unminted coin, as the merciful one states, and you shall bind up the money in your hand, Deuteronomy 14:25, which the sages interpret as serving to include any item that has the imprint, the tzura, of a coin upon it, for desacralization, not an unminted coin. The question is with regard to payment of its additional 1/5. What is the halakha in terms of the possibility that it will be desacralized with an unminted coin? Rami Bar Chama was unable to resolve this series of dilemmas, and the matter proceeded and came before Rava, who said to the people who related the dilemmas to him, the verse states, and shall add unto it 1/5 part thereof. Leviticus 27:27, which serves to include its additional 1/5 within the same legal status as that of its principal. Ravina said, we too learn this from in a Mishnah. Terumot 6:4. One who steals truma and did not partake of it pays a payment of double the principal at the price of the truma. As a thief pays double the value of the item that he stole. Both payments are calculated based on the price of truma, which is lower than the price of a non-sacred food, as the demand for it is lower because it is eaten only by the priest. If the thief ate it unwittingly, he pays a payment worth the value of 2 principals and adds 1/5 in this manner. He pays 1 principal and 1/5 from the non-sacred items, like any non-priest who partakes of truma, and with regard to the other principal, he pays it according to the price of truma.